What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 15 of the Smokin' Weed and Talkin' MMA podcast. My name is Jarrod. I'm here with my co-host, Paul.
What's up?
And we are coming to you from beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada,
Fuck yeah.
Land of legal cannabis. And we are smoking on quite a bit. Let's take a look at today's cannabis menu to start the episode. Paul just took a fat hit out of this bong of some sour banana sherbet. That's grown by Green and Gold here in Vegas. One of my favorite strains. It's got a sour diesel cross to it, which I like a lot. We got some shatter for this, taking dabs out of the bong earlier. Got some Ghost Train Haze. This is by Trike here in Nevada. 69% THC. That's pretty sporty. We got a joint here of, this is Dizzy's Dream. This is put out by Redwood. And this is grown by, or it's local rapper Dizzy Wright's branded herb.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
And then finally we got this. This is some powerful shit. If you're watching on video, and this little vape pen right here, this is a pineapple diesel THC distillate, which is a 95.3% THC. Shit don't get much stronger than that, dude. Yep. You just took a hit of that before the show. What'd you think?
It's pretty nice.
I like
smooth
it, man. It's real smooth.
For being that high in THC content.
The only thing I don't like about these is a lot of these vape pens, they're adding flavored terpenes in. Now this particular company adds just a tiny amount and they put the ingredients in, so I don't mind it so much, but sometimes I wonder about the health consequences of smoking terpenes. But
I mean, I don't
know. It's just something I find myself thinking of when you get these weird flavors. But this pineapple diesel is the bomb right there.
Yeah,
for show. And we had some good fights last night. Let's jump right into the UFC. We had let's actually go back a week, dude. Not last night's fights, but UFC 230 we had.
Yeah, since our last episode.
Yeah, since the last episode. Which, let's just talk about the top three on there. Which
that was kind of a sleeper.
Yeah,
both these cards had kind of sleepers in them.
Let's just jump into the main event. What did you think of Derek Lewis and DC?
As everyone,
heavyweight championship.
It's what everyone thought it was going to be, honestly. It ended up being just,
DC winning.
DC wrestle him, choke him out, finished it.
I'm going to hit this sour banana sherbet here.
Yeah.
We both picked Derek Lewis.
I picked Derek Lewis because he was 8-1 odds. And I was like, I don't give a fuck. I don't care. If you're that big of an underdog, I'm fucking taking you, dude. I'm taking you.
And, we're not journalists here. We're fans. So we can say who we like and who
Derek
we
Lewis
don't
is a funny motherfucker, too. Like, it would have been one of the fucking most hilarious nights in MMA if he probably would have won that fight. Beat DC, took away his double champ. And then just imagine what that after interview would have been like.
Oh, it would have been amazing.
It would have been fucking
It would have been absolutely amazing. But as expected, Daniel Cormier retains his World Heavyweight Championship. He is also, with the time clock ticking, the light heavyweight champion as well.
And one big thing to note here is lately in MMA media and everyone close to both fighters have stated neither one of them, either DC or Jones, wants to fight a third time. They both say that they're not going to fight a third time.
Yes, if you're listening and you're not certain, John Jones is the returning 205-pound champion, been on suspension, greatest MMA fighter of all time, and DC's biggest rival. He has 2 losses to Jones, although one was overturned over some bullshit we're not going to get into.
Yeah.
And DC's been making rumblings, or the media, you're saying, has been making rumblings about that third fight. But
yeah, and then both fighters and everyone near them said it's not on the table, that both guys have moved on.
Look,
do you believe that?
I believe that because I don't think John Jones has anything to prove.
Absolutely
because
not.
He's got 2 victories.
And 2 dominant victories.
Yeah. And if he fights him at heavyweight and loses, then it's going to kind of erase those prior
victories. Well,
here's
the deal
in the fans' minds. And so,
here's the deal. It's when you really break it down between Jones and DC, if Jones were to go up to heavyweight, it would almost kind of level the playing field for DC, you know what I mean?
DC's best at heavyweight, surprisingly. I mean, his 100%. Body type, he should be at middleweight.
Yeah.
but he's successful being overweight, and he does good with it. All the
Yeah.
Roy Nelson, only with a lot more talent.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, when you look back, honestly, when he had his best fights, they always were at heavyweight. Because I mean,
Yeah,
he's
undefeated.
He
heavyweight.
really made his name. The only reason he even made a huge name in light heavyweight was that Dan Henderson fight, because his biggest fights always were at heavyweight. And then when he got to the UFC and he fought Dan Henderson, that was like kind of his coming out party to the UFC, to like, holy shit, this guy is legitimate. And then, of course, that's what people don't understand too, is like, this John Jones and DC's rivalry is such a like accident, honestly.
It is an accidental rivalry, in my opinion, because DC
was never
sensitive.
Well, no, DC was never even scheduled to fight John Jones. John Jones was scheduled to fight Gustafsson the second time, which we're finally getting to see now.
Right.
But this was what, back in, I want to say 2011? Was that 11, 12? When they fought the first time?
It was 5 years ago.
5 years ago? Damn.
It was, right.
2013?
Yeah. 2013, yes.
Well, basically how it goes was Gustafsson was supposed to fight Jones, but then Gustafsson got injured, and DC was the last-minute replacement, and John Jones started talking shit to him on an ESPN interview, and now all this whole rivalry has ensued since. It's like, that's such like, just didn't even, who knows if we ever would have saw that fight had DC not taken that, like, last-minute fight.
Last-minute fight. It's interesting. Well, that's what's possibly next for Daniel Cormier after this, is either John Jones, which the media seems to be pushing.
Or
Brock Lesnar, which I've been saying now for the past 2 or 3 episodes, that I think that fight's off the table. I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I kind of do too.
I honestly think we're going to see DC versus Stipe in a rematch.
Think so?
I don't think, because that's going to be the fight that Cormier necessarily wants, but it's going to be the one
What's
that's
on the
left.
table.
Yeah. And I don't think you can keep denying Stipe Miocic his rightful rematch.
Unless DC realizes that he is now, he's defended the heavyweight title. Now maybe he wants, if that Brock fight's not on the table, only Stipe is on the table. I wonder if John Jones would be open to a third fight if DC was coming back to
At
205.
light heavyweight, I don't think Jones could deny it, because if he was going to make that move, which would be shocking since he weighed 251 pounds against Derek Lewis, but possible to get down to 205, I suppose. If he did it, he would not be stripped of the title, because he's going to be stripped supposedly as soon as the first shots are thrown in Jones versus Gustafsson 2 on December 29th. So Jones couldn't deny the fight, then that's the champion.
Can you really strip him if he signs anything with intent to go down back to 205 and defend his other title too? Because he really hasn't held the division up that much. When you really think
it's
about
not held up now because Jones is back. And if
Yeah.
DC was scheduling his next fight for certain, if Jones-Gus wasn't happening and DC said, okay, I'm going to fight Gustafsson at 205 or whoever, then yeah, they couldn't strip him. But
that's just, I hate when they do this, because it's like, okay, if you're going to make somebody a double champ, allow them to jump back and forth. Don't fucking like make them fight one fight in another division and then strip them as soon as they fight in the other division. It's like, okay, if they're going to be a legitimate double champion, allow them a chance to defend both belts. No double champ that has ever, where there's never been a double champ who's actually had a chance to defend their titles. They keep talking about DC broke this record, like, dang, the first guy to ever defend both belts. No one else got a chance to do it.
right.
So, like,
It's not like they've tried and failed.
Yeah,
There's no opportunity.
There's no
given.
opportunity for any other double champ to actually defend their belts.
DC gets a lot of love from the UFC.
Well,
But
you hear what
whatever.
Dana was talking about on a fight week?
No.
He was talking about possibly he would put in a vote for DC to take over as president of the company when he steps down.
That's I didn't even know that. Yeah, they love him. Good for them. I mean,
don't get me wrong. He seems like a good guy, but
we're just not
talked about
fans.
this in the
If you
past.
haven't
It's not
listened to
a
this
fan base.
podcast before, we're not. It's nothing. I mean, he's a great fighter. You can't deny that. But I just don't particularly like Daniel Cormier.
And
as a fan.
It's honestly a biased thing because I'm a huge fan of John Jones, and I just feel like DC's come in and fucking, you know.
DC just rubs me the wrong way a little bit. I
Yes.
can't put my finger on it. It's just the way it is. It's
I don't fuck with him, and that's
I like
a lot
John,
too,
I like
'cause
John Jones too. So there's that.
He's real respected, and actually, no, he's not really that. I don't know. Like, there's that's the thing. Is like he's like a love-hate guy. Either people love DC or they just fucking despise him. He's one of those kind of people, man.
Well, the thing that bugs me is he always wears the white hat, and then he goes out and does shit that I think is inconsistent with his trying to be a good guy image. Like, he tells John Jones shit like, oh, you'd be out sandblasting prostitutes. Which I don't care if you say that, but that's not the Daniel Cormier brand, right?
I feel you.
It's petty. Like,
Don't
my
talk shit
dislikes of him
sometimes
are
and then-
petty, but...
Well, here's the thing,
And
too.
he tries
is
to act
like
like a
okay.
gangster half the time, which I mean, like...
Well, no, it's not even
like,
that.
you're not a
It's-
gangster,
it's,
dude. Just
It's
be
not
you.
even that. It's
You're
like, don't be a
dad.
hypocrite either, because you're sitting out here and you're going to talk shit with Jones, but then, I mean, I hate
wants
to
to
be
fight
a
Lesnar?
fanboy like this, but then you talk shit about Conor fucking talking shit to Khabib and start that whole thing happen like that. You fucking talked way more personal shit about Jones.
Right.
And Jones didn't do shit to you, and you're lucky he could have fucking picked up that mic after you were sitting there crying, just got head kicked and have no idea where you were at. He could have picked up that mic and been like, yeah, fuck you, little bitch. Like, that's what you get. But he was gracious. But then you're going to turn around and talk shit about somebody who lost and was gracious but then was attacked by somebody else.
Well,
Like,
that's what I'm saying. It's inconsistencies
he's
with
a
that.
hypocrite
Like, he's
a lot.
fake. Like, when he kept
and then
calling
talk
John
shit
Jones
about people
fake,
missing weight, and then you're fucking missing weight all the time.
you're doing the towel trick,
Yeah,
which was
get
a total...
the fuck out of here.
it was
Talking
a
shit
total
about
cheat
Yoel
move.
missing weight, but then, yeah, you're the one who's missed
Right.
weight
And he
twice.
talks all the shit about John Jones and the drugs, the performance-enhancing drugs.
Yeah.
Then who does he want to fight? Brock Lesnar, who's
Yeah,
currently,
exactly.
as of right now, suspended, literally at the same event Jones got caught
Yeah.
at, for drug use.
Yep.
That's what I mean. It's just shit like that. It's not his fighting. He's a dope fighter, dude. I don't like his style. It puts
Yeah,
me to
fuck him,
sleep,
dude.
but
I didn't
fuck
really
him.
want to spend this much time on
Well,
him
let's
today.
get off of DC.
So fuck him.
Let's talk. What's up with Derek Lewis? I mean,
Derek Lewis, I feel like he didn't really lose anything here.
no, he didn't lose anything.
It was a win-win
I think he
situation.
probably gained more
No one-
Instagram followers. he
Well,
got paid.
no one expected him to win this fight,
Right.
and I mean,
And I love that guy. Good
Yeah.
for him, man. I hope his Popeye's chicken deal goes through. I hope his Beard and the Beast podcast keeps taking off. And I hope to see him in the octagon again against somebody fun. And I don't really give a shit about the title. And what I like about him is he's like, yeah, I'm not trying to be the best fighter, and I don't give a shit about the
I'm trying
title.
to make some money.
I'm trying to make some money to feed the family. Word, dude.
Yeah.
I can respect that just as much as people who are going for that title. At least you're real.
The co-main event, there was a couple guys who could have been. There were some title implications there.
Well, yeah, co-main event, we had Chris Weidman, former champ, against Jacare
Souza.
Souza, number
Who's
4
a
versus
fucking
number 5.
Seasoned vet.
Yes.
Seasoned
Highly
vet.
decorated Brazilian jiu-jitsu
He's
practitioner.
damn near fought every middleweight in the division.
And a beast with his fists. He's really come up over the years with his fists, Jacare
Like,
has.
realistically, who has he not fought? He's fought Yoel. He's
Yeah, I
fought
was gonna say,
Whitaker.
he's fought-
He's fought
he's fought everybody.
Weidman
Weidman.
now. He's fought fucking... Literally, probably the only person he hasn't fought is Anderson Silva, and that'll never happen.
No. So, but he comes back. You know, Chris Weidman looked great in that fight, all the way up to getting knocked out.
Once again, dude, Weidman, he seems to get this, like... I don't know if it's a cruise mentality at the end of the fights, but for some reason he just kind of lays off the gas at the end of these fights, and it's really cost him lately.
It certainly has. I mean, he was undefeated, best in the world, many were thinking at the time. And now he's gone on
could
this
be a
terrible
mental thing,
streak
man.
of knockouts. And like you said, parts where it seems like he's cruising a bit, and other times where it seems like he just does
He's
something
lost.
so out of the
Doesn't
blue.
know what to do. Like, he gets... Like, really, when we talk about the two fights where he's done things like that, is when you talk about the Rockhold fight.
Rockhold
where
fight
he
with
was
that
getting
wheel
really
kick.
frustrated
Yes.
by Rockhold. He was getting kind of like his just timing and everything wasn't there. So he just went for a fucking wheel kick, which was the dumbest thing ever. Gets taken down and then finished.
Yeah, and then never gets up again, basically. And
Then
yeah.
the Yoel fight, he thought that he could go in there and wrestle with Yoel, which was the dumbest idea of all time. And Yoel just fucking ragdolled him and then hit him with one of the nastiest flying knee KOs you'll ever see, and was fucking
Yeah,
cracked after that.
I felt
that
bad
was
for
a
Chris
like
after
that was a sorry fuck, like that was That was a like really scary sight for a
It
second.
was.
There.
I love
'Cause
fighting.
He was not cut
damn.
at all during the fight. And then once that knee hits, he turns over after he's KO'd, and all you see is his like whole face is drenched in blood, dude. It was like, oh fuck.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Very similar to when Venom Page knocked out that
Knocked out Cyborg Santos. Yeah. For those of you that don't know, this was in a Bellator event. Michael Venom Page kneed a fighter by the name of Cyborg Santos in the forehead and literally cracked his skull. You could see it. It's terribly frightening.
He retired after it.
As he should have.
Yeah.
His metal plates in his forehead now. It was crazy.
That is nuts. But yeah, back to Weidman. I mean, then after that, you have a shaky performance against Gegard, where a lot of people, including myself, think that was properly stopped. He fucking said he couldn't take anymore. Like,
yeah.
Kind of tapped out with a verbal tap almost. Like, and then it's just.
Then he gets the win over Gastelum.
Yeah, but that was.
But he got
weird,
rocked.
That was and that was like Gastelum's like kind of first fight at that level.
Dealing with that size, Chris is a big dude. He could fight at 205. He really showed.
Well, when you talk about Gastelum too, against Souza, who fought Weidman this last weekend, he really showed now that he's at the level that he's at that he can handle people that size. But
yes.
So it's like, Weidman had a big win there, and with that win came a lot of implications of a possible title shot going into this fight if he were to pull it off. And he cruised through the first 2 rounds. He was really out.
He was moving
grappling,
well.
He was doing
punching well.
Yeah.
Looking crisp.
In the 3rd round, something happened. Like something.
Yeah, he looked off.
Something in his mind didn't click. And Souza came out and just started laying it on him. He was picking him apart on the feet. I'd never seen Jacare strike like that, honestly.
He looked like a world beater, and
it was ridiculous. I was like, whoa.
I felt bad. We saw after Chris got knocked out. You know, he looked around. And he was like, he said straight up to his corner. He said, "Did I lose?" Like he didn't even know what happened.
Dude,
I hate seeing that.
Here's one thing: is like he got punched in the forehead for the finish.
Yeah.
So like you got to think how fucking hard.
That was a bad call from the ref too.
Oh,
I mean,
he wanted Souza to keep hitting him. That was
for those of you that didn't see it. Souza basically KOs Weidman. Weidman falls, and then the ref doesn't come in to stop it. Weidman's out, and the ref doesn't stop the fight.
And he tells Souza to keep going.
He tells Souza the fight's still continuing. So Weidman winds up taking, what is it, two or three hammer fists to his. He just laid out. He was just laid out. He was prone, and he had to take hammer fists against the mat. Right on the head.
That was bullshit.
That's what I mean. And then when he wakes up, the first thing he has, he looks to his corner, and you can see him mouth it. He says, "Did I lose?"
Yeah.
Like he doesn't even know what the fuck happened. And I mean, that's the fight game, but it's also rough to see, especially a guy like Chris who's taken those KOs now in a lot of fights.
Yeah, for sure.
Fuck, man.
Yeah.
That's why we say these guys don't get paid enough. It's not. I mean, NFL players take hits too, and these guys, most of them don't even make what league minimum guys fucking make.
True.
So, but that was So what's up with Souza? You think he's in the title picture now? You got. He always has been, but now even more so. I mean, he was top 5.
See, there's
some kind of
division.
A mess.
This division
is still in there.
This division's in a weird spot.
You got Whitaker versus Gastelum for the title in beginning of next year.
So you got that fight coming up. Then you have this kind of ties into our next fight. This whole night, 2:30 was kind of. A lot of people referred to it as like the middleweight tournament.
Yeah, it was a bit of a middleweight tournament.
Then you had Candahir knock out what's his name? David Branch.
That was shocking.
It was originally supposed to be Jacare versus Branch, then Weidman versus Rockhold, and then to start the card was Israel Adesanya versus Derek Brunson, which is
that's the
really
next fight
Israel
we're talk
Adesanya's
about
coming
here,
out
and
party.
the final one on this card, I think, but.
Israel
Adesanya, Derek Brunson, 185.
Before, although we said that Tavares fight was his coming out party, this night was his real coming out party. This was, he said it was his stroll in the garden. You know,
this was his 4th UFC fight, right?
UFC fight in this year.
In this year alone.
Not like everyone keeps acting like he's been here for a minute. This is his 4th fight this year. He's still a brand new fighter in the UFC when you think about it.
Now, those of you who may not have heard of this guy, because he's still, if you're not a hardcore fan, he might be a little under the radar. Israel Adesanya, He's a former kickboxer who has, I believe, a 86-4 or something very close to that professional kickboxing record, who is known for doing something that got dubbed God Mode with his striking displays, where he'd literally drop his hands, slip a bunch of punches, and knock people the fuck out in an amazing fashion all through his kickboxing career. Then he makes his debut in the UFC 4 fights ago, earlier this year, in fact. And, of course, coming from kickboxing, Paul, what was his big criticism? People say no takedown,
biggest criticism is going to be his grappling.
Yeah, his grappling and no takedown defense.
When you look at last night's fight compared to his first fight, it's crazy how good his grappling has got.
Well, he was fighting no slouch. I mean, Derek Brunson's got some wrestling credentials,
is all-American fucking wrestler, dude.
Yeah, all-American.
Like, he is a legit wrestler. And he's a little herky-jerky on the feet, but he's got legitimate power in his hands.
Sure, he can't strike with Adesanya, obviously, but he's no slouch on the feet.
But he's known to use that wrestling to cause the big strikes to come. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And a lot of people were worried about Israel in this fight because in the past, like his first two fights, his striking, of course, is always going to be top level, but his grappling was a little sketch the first two fights.
Yeah, he got taken down. Yeah.
I think he got taken down twice in his first fight. Or no, 3 times his first fight, twice his second fight, once the third
against
fight.
Tavares.
I don't
know if Tavares took him down.
Yeah, I don't think so actually. So I think it was 3-2, 0-0.
Now this fight ended at the end of the first round against Brunson, right?
Yeah.
And he had tried 7 takedown attempts.
7 fucking takedowns.
From an All-American.
And then what was it, 11 for Tavares too? I think it was.
He had quite a few attempts.
Yeah, I think he was like 1 for 11. I think he popped right back up.
And Israel spent, like, he kind of tends to feel people out in the first round.
Yeah.
Only this time he just kind of felt him out in the beginning of the first round and then proceeded to unload the bombs.
Israel's, like, amount of, like high level, like, movement and, like, technique with his striking is where he's really made the most, like, improvement. Is, like, his placement, like his underhooks and overhooks and, like, you know, stuff like that. Like his hand placement and making sure that, like, he's never giving up his hips and his hips are always out and, like, never really, like, giving up any leverage to the other guys is really, like, what's causing. He's really using his length. You know what I mean? Like he's really keeping guys off his legs. He's keeping them on his hips where he's really not in that much danger. You know what I'm saying? And
he's shown to be very coachable inside the octagon as well. Because he was talking about how they had trained, obviously, for wrist control. And then during the fight, when he's up against the cage, he had wrist control on Derek. And his corner called to switch it to bicep control, which he did. And got him right out of the situation. And then he adapted and used that the rest of the fight.
Yep.
A little bit that there was.
Yeah,
and then just once again ended it with a display of striking that Jesus.
My question is, who's next?
He is legitimately could fight for the title, I think, or anybody in the top 5.
I would like to see him versus Rockhold.
I would love to see that fight. Please, MMA gods, can we see?
But here's the thing, though.
Fight?
Like, this middleweight division, although that was supposed to be, like, where we got more clarity in the division, now we got more question marks because the guys who were supposed to win and cause the clarity in the division did not win.
This is true. We had typical of fighting. I mean, that's why we love this sport.
Because if Weidman would have won, then it would have made a lot of sense to do Israel Adesanya versus Weidman next.
God, yeah.
But Jacare won it, and I don't think Jacare versus Israel Adesanya is that great of a fight to make.
Yeah, I don't know why Jacare would want that fight. I think he would tend to look higher.
That's what I'm saying. I think Jacare might even hold out.
Where Weidman, with his losses that he's had lately, the Adesanya fight would make sense in that regard, you know. But that's
but then what you also have to take into account is you have Darren Till, who was just fought for the title, is now in this division.
Yes, coming up from 170, Darren Till.
So who is he going to get? Like, he's going to have to get a legit top 10 opponent. He's not going to come in and fight some unranked fighter.
Even though he got his ass whooped.
He's not going to come in and fight an unranked fighter.
No, that wouldn't make any sense. I don't know what Adesanya would gain from Till, but there's maybe that matchup.
Nah, they're boys, actually, I think.
Are they?
I think so. But still. it just
It'll be interesting
it
to see
adds
how
into
it
that
plays
mix
out.
though, because then also for the fucking third time, Paulo Costa and
Yoel
Yoel
Romero is
Romero has
off.
fallen out.
Right.
You know, so it's like,
I think that fight's done. I don't think they're going to try to book it again.
yeah. So then that opens kind of maybe a number one contender fight for the title between, you know, Israel and maybe, you know, Paulo Costa. That'd be a good fight. Dude.
That would be interesting. Yes, a couple of unbeatens
Couple
there.
unbeatens, couple high-level strikers.
High-level strikers, unbeaten records.
One more
very
finesse,
different physiques.
one more power.
Yeah.
Kind of the power striker versus the volume striker, you know what I mean?
Adesanya's tall and lanky for the division, whereas
I'd be
Costa's
very curious to
bodybuilder
see that
looking-
fight also because of how Costa did against Uriah Hall. Because if Uriah Hall would have fought a little bit more like Israel, I think he would have beat Paulo Costa.
Uriah Hall.
Because Uriah Hall had him in some dangerous positions in that fight. He tagged him quite a few times.
Uriah Hall is one of those guys that just has so much talent but can't seem to ever just get it dialed all together at once.
So yeah, well, that's I think that's the fight to make in this division. So just because unless it's just questionable because there's some guys who could honestly probably wait out a title shot, but then there's also some big fights we could see where we could get some separation.
Interesting to see what happens next in the 185 division for sure. As far as UFC 230 though, that's about all I want to talk about as far as that goes. Because we do have an event that we had here this weekend, of course, UFC Denver.
What a fucking co-main event, main event. Everything
that's what we're going to talk about on that card mainly as well. The other fights were what they were.
I mean, the main card opener was kind of cool.
Yeah,
kind of not like a rematch.
Ronaldo versus
Luis
Pena, which should have been
the Ultimate Fighter
on
finale.
the Ultimate Fighter finale, but
but
Pena got injured, fell out of the Ultimate Fighter. Ronaldo winds up winning it. Now they met in the octagon.
I don't know. He
Ronaldo
almost took a step
with the
back,
win.
in my opinion.
Who did?
Pena's almost taken a step back, in my opinion.
I question the. Well, this just comes into my biases, but I mean, he went out to AKA, and I don't know if that paid off for him. He really seemed focused on.
You think he's not getting as much help? You think he's kind of lost in the shuffle?
I think that can easily happen over there because he was 5-0. He's a very young fighter. Up until last night, he was 5-0.
He's 5-1.
You know, he's a new guy, and yet Cormier liked him on the show when he went out there. But
he was talking about that he was helping Khabib train for Conor. That's what he was saying.
I think he should be focused on
the
type of fighters he's going to run into, which is not Khabib.
Was he a
45?
Ronaldo's
a striker, and he lit him up on the feet. He lit him up on the feet last night. I was really impressed. I thought Pena would win that fight.
Pena did not use his length very well.
No, he seemed more focused on the wrestling, which would make sense if he's been at AKA just trying to fuck around with wrestling, thinking my striking's already elite, it is good, but the UFC is a different level, man. You're coming off a tough. That's not UFC. Like, he's had one fight in the UFC. And I'm not knocking the guy. I love the guy. I thought he'd win last night.
He looked good in the his first fight in the UFC also, but
he did.
Last night was just not the same performance I was looking for.
No, I didn't like a lot of his decisions, and Ronaldo just looked really good, man.
Ronaldo fucking
it was an
tore
exciting
that
fight,
lead leg up.
Yeah.
That was another thing. He was just eating those leg kicks. He was not checking any of them, or even trying to, he wasn't trying to defend him at all. It was terrible. He was just eating him. Like, you can't fucking do that at this level.
He's undefeated as well, too, and I'm interested to see what happens with him. That's an exciting young prospect, and both of them are really. Pena, I don't think he loses much shine.
There's a lot of young talent.
This is his sixth fight. I mean,
145's got a lot of young talent.
Sometimes I think the UFC is bringing these guys over a little too early, just in an effort to fill cards and have stars. Kind of like Northcutt. I mean, Northcutt's likely. We'll segue briefly into that just because I think he was brought over in the UFC too soon. And now, look, he's going to bounce out.
It's hard to tell, man.
Very likely
it's hard to tell with young fighters because there's some guys who are like phenoms, but then there's some guys who just need a little bit more.
You just need a couple fights somewhere else, a level up.
And it's hard to question the talent they're fighting and everything at the lower levels. Like, I don't know.
Right.
It's rough.
Well, that was it was a good fight to open it, and then let's skip up to Donald Cerrone. This was, UFC Denver. There's a lot of things going on. This was the 25th anniversary. The first UFC event was held in Denver, Colorado. My home state. I've been to Denver a million times. I have friends that went to school with Donald Cerrone. He's from Colorado Springs originally, as was Raquel Pennington on the card last night. But I've been a fan of Donald's for a long, long time. He came in here tonight. It's the co-main event. He was tied for the most wins in UFC history. He was tied for most finishes in UFC history.
Yep.
And he was tied for most performance bonuses in WEC/UFC history. And he broke two of those records last night with a win over Mike Perry.
And kind of threw a fucking middle finger to to fucking Jackson.
Little backstory for everybody listening in. Donald fights out of a gym, a very famous gym in Albuquerque. Used to. Jackson Wink. It's where John Jones fights. A lot of great fighters. World-renowned gym. He's been there for a long, 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 long time, like 10 years. Whole career. And Mike Perry, who we fought last night, came into the gym a few months ago. Wound up fighting Cowboy. Cowboy had a falling out with Winkle John, one of the two owners of the gym. Talked a lot of shit and peaced out.
Yeah.
So there was like this feeling of they picked the new guy over Cowboy. There was this feeling of Cowboy, he's lost a lot of fights, and he went up to welterweight. He moved up from 155. He's been around a long time.
I think he lost like 3 of his last 5 or something.
He's a fan favorite. He's an icon in the sport. I mean, like we just said, he's tied for most wins. We're not talking most wins in a division. Yeah. We're talking most wins in the UFC in the last 25 years on their anniversary. That is a hell of an accomplishment. He's tied with Michael Bisping and George St. Pierre.
Here's my only knock with Cowboy and what he's accomplished in the UFC. My only knock, and no one's ever. It's always going to be his knock. Is kind of quality over quantity. He's fought everybody in a good way and a bad way also. You know what I mean? Like, he's had some real big fights, but he's also had some real stupid fights too. Like, and
he's lost some of those fights though too. I mean, like, he just lost to Leon Roberts. No knocking Roberts, but I mean, Leon Edwards. I'm sorry, that's an up and comer off of.
Darren Till was a stupid fight to take.
Darren Till was a terrible fight to take, but that's Cowboy's mentality, which is what endears him to fans. That I'll fight anybody.
He's laid some eggs though, man. Like,
we were talking about this before the show started today. Donald has all the skills in the world to beat anybody, I think, in his weight division of 155 and maybe even 170 all the way to the top. But he gets a little fucked up in the head.
Yep.
And he'll be the first to tell you that. He knows it. He's publicly admitted going to a sports psychologist. He's identified the problem and tried to overcome it.
And then last night said that really becoming a father has like changed his whole perspective.
Yes, he had a son 4 months ago, his first child.
And he said it's completely changed his perspective on fighting and what he's fighting for, and maybe that's for the best. And
well, that's what he says.
This is a new Cowboy that no one's ready for, and he's going to come down to 55. And honestly, I mean, the Khabib call-out was a little corny. I don't want to see him fight Khabib. But at the same time, it's like, who knows what he can do at 55. I think him and Tony Ferguson would be a huge fight at 55.
Look, every hardcore fan knows that that's the knock on Donald Cerrone, is that he gets a little fumbled in his head as far as handling pressure in a big moment and doesn't perform at optimal levels.
Yeah.
And he said last night, when I don't think it's bullshit, he says he's coming out of the cage, or he's coming out the tunnel, he sees his 4-month-old son in his cowboy hat and his little fucking belt, and he's like, and it clicked in his head, like, this is what it's for.
Yep.
This is why I'm doing this now. And speaking as a father, that's a legit thing, and it's something you're not going to understand until you have a kid, because it's like trying to describe colors to a blind person. You just can't. But when it happened, so that's legit. Like, he could have really found that fucking missing thing that even at this late stage in his career gives him that mental fucking fix that he's needed.
Well, here's the thing, and he hasn't diminished too much in his, like, physical state. Like,
Perry's a beast. He just went out and took his best shots, landed a bunch of blows, and then fucking broke his arm in an arm bar.
Yeah.
And wins in the first round.
His first armbar finish since WEC.
It's a beautiful thing.
It's pretty dope.
Like, we both picked Perry, but I love
Perry.
Cowboy.
Here's my thing.
Like,
I picked Perry because of what we were talking about before. I looked at this as an emotional fight for Cowboy.
Yes,
because of all the things that were happening in the gym. And I'm glad to see him win, honestly.
Oh my God, I'm a huge fan. I fucking love Cowboy.
I kind of figured this was going to be like the one where, because that would have been his second or third loss in a row, and this would kind of be the fight where people are like, man,
It would have been 4 losses
much,
in 5 fights
yeah,
if he'd have lost that.
like,
And that,
how much longer can he do this?
especially if he got KO'd.
But now
But
when he
now-
went, that's the thing with Cowboy though. He does this, man.
He does.
He does this always. He like, you know, he goes on a 5-fight win streak and then he drops 3 in a row, and you're like, fuck, man. How much longer can you do this? I don't know. Watch me go win 3 in a row, and then ask me, and then watch him get, you know, maybe a Tony Ferguson or a Khabib fight, and he lays an egg or something like that. Then you're gonna ask the question again: how much longer do you want to do this? But then he fucking wins 4 more after that. That's why he's like such a That's why people love him, man.
He's Cowboy. He's
fucking.
awesome.
He doesn't give a shit if he's won, lost. Doesn't matter. He's going to fucking scrap it out against anyone. It doesn't matter if he broke. Dude, he fucking broke his arm during this camp.
And
Like,
I know he broke Mike Perry's arm. That's a statement.
no, I'm talking about his own arm.
Oh, his arm.
He fucking.
I
you
saw
didn't
his
see that?
Instagram post where it was bandaged up,
Yeah,
but
he
I
was-
didn't know the extent
He
of
was.
the
It
injury.
was a fucking. He was in a soft cast for like a week or something like
Wow.
that. 2 weeks.
Well, if you don't
Maybe,
know and
I
you're
don't know.
listening, Cowboy in his personal life is a wild man. He's an
He's-
adrenaline junkie. He does all kinds of crazy
Dude, he almost
shit.
died.
He almost died
Recently.
cave diving recently. He tells all about it on Joe Rogan's podcast. You can Google that shit.
Couldn't find his way out, and he had an hour left of air. Fuck that, dude. That'd be the scariest way to die.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. The thought of that terrifies me. I don't do good with that type of situation.
What a badass, though, dude.
Yeah,
He's
dude.
fucking-
You hold your shit together, come out through that. You come out, you have a son. Let's see what
Yeah, that's
happens,
rough.
man. Good for
Dude.
Cowboy, man. He broke those records. He's the UFC's winningest fighter now, and he's not done yet. That's the
Not
thing.
done at all.
GSP is maybe likely done. Bisbing, maybe likely
done. Maybe he comes back one more.
Maybe
but
they
I
got
don't see
one
it.
more each.
Like,
Cowboy could
Cowboy
rattle off 5 or
legitimate.
6
I
more
was
fights.
gonna say he legitimately can fight possibly another 5 times.
Yeah, that's no joke.
Yeah.
So
He's talking about he wants to fight in December. He wants
the-
to fight on that Jones Gustafson card.
So well, here's the final thing on this Cowboy fight, and I'll say I am not a fan of his desire to move back down to 155. What do you
You're
think?
not? I like it actually because I think at 55 he's much stronger.
You think
Like-
so?
100%. Because you look at that fight with Robbie Lawlor, and you look at that, and he kind of let the size of the weight class get to him in that fight.
Bulked
He
up a
couldn't
bit for
really
this
take
Perry
the
fight.
shots.
He looked more
did.
muscular
He
tonight.
looked big. He looked big.
Or last night, yeah.
But like when you look at him earlier when he was fighting at 70, he wasn't really getting up to 70. He kind of just wasn't cutting weight, you know. And it was
Yeah,
like
he walks around pretty lean. He's not a guy that gets out
Yeah.
of shape in the
no,
offseason.
not at all.
or
But you know what
at
I'm
all.
saying though. He wasn't. It wasn't that he was bulking up. He was just fighting at a healthy weight. You know what I'm saying? And for this fight, I think he actually came in a little bit. I mean, I don't know. He hasn't really said anything about it, but it looks to me like he probably came into this camp a little heavier than usual.
His Instagram posts, he looked larger.
Yeah.
Like before he started the weight
Which-
cut, like he looked like he put on some muscle. Like he didn't look like he
which
was fucking around.
Leaves us with the question of if things don't work out at 55. Let's say he goes back down to 55, loses a fight. Do you think he goes back to 70?
Maybe he's waiting in limbo to see if
Yeah,
the
we-
UFC really gets this
And we talked
165
about this earlier.
division
I
going.
think 65 is his eventual.
I mean, we've talked about
weight
it on this
class.
podcast before, and I've openly stated I was against it because, well, we're not going to get into that now. It's on other episodes. But the difference now is it looks like they're bringing it in because they're eliminating the 125 men's
Yeah,
division.
if
So,
people haven't heard, there's been multiple fighters from the UFC that have come out to MMA fighting and said that their agents have been notified that the division is being dissolved. And
yeah, they've been
released.
cut. Yeah, they're coming off losses. They've been cut and notified that the division's going down.
Yeah.
And of
And
course,
then also now we kind of have a weird like we're in a weird place because they're dissolving that division, but they really haven't said anything about 65 yet. They're kind of
right. This is
keeping
all
everything
rumor
under
about
wraps right now.
65. This is all speculation.
Yeah.
Dana's publicly said it'll never happen, but Dana
But then
also
when
said
you
women will
dissolve
never
one
fight in the
division,
UFC.
what do you do? Like, how do you not replace?
Yeah,
it
it
with another
changes the
division?
game, especially if you're going to, of course, bump 70 to 175,
Yeah.
and then keep the
Six-
division the same. I would say you
Yeah.
keep Tyron the champion.
What
and
would you
just-
call the 65 division?
I don't even know, but
Because they don't even do it like
they don't do it like
they
I
don't
mean, like
even do it like boxing.
No,
like,
no,
boxing
no, not even.
cruiserweight is like
When I boxed, I fought at lightweight, and
Yeah.
it was 140 pounds.
Yeah.
139 to be
Yeah.
exact. Like it wasn't.
It's a weird.
It wasn't 170, dog.
Yeah.
That's for sure. So, well, it'll be exciting to see what
Would it be
happens
super
with that.
lightweight.
I'll be down with that, and I'd be down to see Cowboy. He's one of these fighters that's in between where 65 he could fit that quite well, actually, because he is a bit small for 70, unless he went like Perry. I mean, he's taller than Mike Perry, but Perry's muscular as fuck.
Here's what you got to take into effect also. People keep talking there's nobody to fill in, but when you make 170 go to 175, then you attract some of those guys from 85 that are smaller as well.
Right.
Then maybe you get a Kelvin Gastelum to come back down, and you get that Tyron Woodley Kelvin Gastelum fight that people are already asking for. You know what I'm saying? So like it kind of people aren't seeing that. They keep thinking that it's going to be 160 and like 170 is going to, 165, then it's still going to be 170.
No,
if there's a 65, they're making it 175.
Yeah,
also.
they have to. They can't have it go 165,
and then
170, and then 185.
Fucking,
That's absurd. No, it would automatically bump welterweight to 175.
That's what I'm saying. Is like then you'd have all those guys in those in between like body styles would probably fight 65.
I'm on board with that as long as the flyweights
or 75 also. Then you get some intriguing
out.
fights there too, honestly. Because there's quite a few guys, like maybe even a guy like Israel Adesanya could come down to 175, because he doesn't fucking give a shit. He doesn't cut very much weight.
No, he's a skinny dude.
He said he walks around at like 200 pounds.
Interesting.
So,
well,
it makes things interesting in these middle weight classes, because you could have 55s at 65. You could have, you can even have guys at 75 that are like, that are from 55. Like it's weird to say that, but like you can even see some guys from 55 move to 75.
No, the way the weight cutting works, yeah. That's which is why I was against the division to begin with, because I don't think it solves the weight cutting issue. I think what you just said happens is because you're going to have guys that are all the way at 85 that are like, oh shit, I could make 65.
Yeah.
But anyways, let's see what happens. I think we're going to see a lot of changes once we get past 2018 here.
Yeah,
and this Fox deal ends and the ESPN era
kicks off. I think
just
things
wait.
change.
Yeah, they're waiting. I think right around that time we're going to get official announcements on the flyweights. And I'm not going to be shocked at all if we get the 165ers at that time. Yep. And
maybe they kick it off with maybe like an Ultimate Fighter season or something.
I wouldn't be surprised at that.
Which would be dumb, because then the champion would be.
It holds things up.
Unless you do something like this. This is my prediction of what they should do. So now, we haven't really talked about this yet, but we'll get to this later. But Ben Askren Lawler's happening. So let's say the winner of that, let's say Ben Askren wins. Then you have this whole 165 Ultimate Fighter, and you have Ben Askren versus the winner of the Ultimate Fighter for the vacant title.
Ben Askren versus the winner of the Ultimate Fighter for the vacant title. That would be pretty interesting.
And you'd have to fill it. It'd be like, I'd want like a return season, not fucking a bunch of fucking
it can't be a bunch of newbies.
I'd want it like a Matt Serra season where like they bring
100%.
in all the guys that are like, or like, you know what I'm saying? Or do a tournament. You could do a tournament.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Dude, that honestly, that would be sick as fuck, actually, if they do a tournament. The UFC, although they'd be kind of following the model of everyone else, but everybody's been dying for some like tournament style fights.
Tournaments are hot right now. The UFC would be wise to jump on it, especially in the ESPN era.
Yeah, exactly. You can do them like every Friday night. Do like a Friday night fight, and it's gonna be like the first fight of the tournament. Second time.
That'd be very cool.
That'd be perfect for ESPN.
Well, let's circle back around to Ben Askren here in just a second and finish up on UFC Denver, which was Korean Zombie versus late replacement and young upstart phenom Yair Rodriguez.
Huge fight for Yair.
Yes, he's coming in as a replacement fighter. We hadn't seen him, well, ironically, since he lost to Frankie Edgar, who he wound up replacing in this fight. Yeah. And not only did he lose to Edgar, he got
beat down
very badly. He comes in against Korean Zombie, who's coming off injury too. He had a broken arm, and prior to that, he had 2 years off for military service in Korea.
Yep.
and he's a very high-level fighter, although he's only
Then
ranked 10th
Yair
right
hasn't
now.
fought. Yair hasn't
18
fought
months, yeah.
since John Jones has fought. He was
Exactly.
on that same card as John Jones, DC.
We had a very back-and-forth fight. Just to sum it up before we get into the details, right? Very back-and-forth. We both
Super
had...
back and forth. Super, like...
We had Chan Sung Jung winning the fight,
yeah.
going into the 5th round, and then amazingly, folks, this might be the best knockout of all time. If you didn't see it, you'll have to research it a bit. The Korean Zombie gets knocked out with a crazy... Yair Rodriguez was bent over, Zombie was above him, and Rodriguez shoots his elbow back up behind him, right into the jaw of the Korean Zombie, knocks him out cold. Stone cold unconscious.
At the buzzer.
With 1 second, as the buzzer sounds
as his face hits
the canvas. It was in a fight he was losing.
Yeah.
It was competitive,
It was sick as
but he was
fuck.
losing.
It was sick as fuck.
It was the most amazing thing.
Like, I don't even know.
Is that not the best knockout of all time due to circumstances?
That's fight of the year on top of that.
That's fight of the year and KO of the year. Absolutely. I mean, what were your thoughts watching that?
That was like I was like, oh, all right. So I'm thinking Korean Zombie's gonna win this fight. Korean Zombie was just crisp, man. He was just like, here's the thing: is like, me and my brother were even thinking about this too. Is like, if the only thing where Zombie really fucked up is he was landing combinations, but not finishing them.
Right, he was jumping in with those
He'd
combos,
go in and
but
he hit him with a 1-2. But like, if he would have just threw like a 4-punch combo, he would have landed all 4 punches, like every time. Because Yair kept like dropping his hands and like resetting, and then as he was dropping his hands, he'd come in and lay 2 on his chin. That's really why Chan Sung Jung was winning the fucking fight going into the 5th, and then.
I thought it was such an interesting mixture of 2 different fight styles, the way he was winning that fight. Because Rodriguez is real flashy, right? Does all things unorthodox. And what did Korean Zombie keep tagging him with? A classic 1-2. 1-2.
Yep.
1-2 all day. And just like you said, it would have been a lot more successful if he added a couple more. Add a couple hooks. Yep. Even if you did a 1-2-1,
Dude,
anything like that.
That uppercut he hit him with was gross.
Oh, man. Ooh.
He just... Did he drop him with that? Yeah, he did drop him, right? He sat him on his butt.
Yeah, he sat him down. It was an amazing fight. I don't think that Korean Zombie loses a lot of luster with this, the way it went down. Like,
never mind.
I think that he's still going to remain relevant in the division, and I think he'll get a top-level opponent next. I think it does more for Rodriguez than it does for hurting Zombie losing.
I'd like to see Zombie versus like Cub Swanson or like someone of that on that level. Like, I feel like he's not like, I think if he would have won this fight, he could have been asking for guys like Frankie and Jose.
No, he doesn't need them yet. He needs to get, I think, back on his footing a little bit better. I'd like to see him. Cub Swanson's a good name. I mean, he knocked out Bermudez. Maybe
Pretty
Chad Mendes?
Nah, fuck that. No. Chad Mendes will fuck him up.
No, Chad Mendes, he's been off for a while. I know he's got a fight lined up. But
does he?
I believe so. I can't remember right now. I could be talking out of my high ass, too, honestly. And this joint was not packed very well. It is. Yeah, it's making me annoyed right here. But we're working with it. The weed tastes all right, though. But they packed this thing slow over time.
Yair on the other side. So this was a...
Yeah, let's talk about Rodriguez here.
Number 10.
Yeah,
Yair came in as number 15.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the deal. You think they kind of go back to where kind of almost ended Yair's career and make him fight Z.W.A.T next?
I don't know. That's such a tough question. What about what other options is it? What about your brother's friend, Josh Emmett?
Josh Emmett, I think, would be a good fight for him as well because Josh is about number 8. Yair would probably be like 11, 10 after this because Zombie was 10. So
that'd be interesting. That'd be a good test. It'd be a good fight for Emmett.
For both of them because, I mean, they both are like kind of that young blood part of like the featherweight division right now because it's like before it was kind of the... Like, the 55 division is pretty much what the 45s were a couple years ago, you know? Like,
yeah, they've kind of switched places a little bit. Mm-hmm. And they're both filled with a lot of monsters. But 45 is really competitive right now as well. Yeah.
Well, the landscape has changed, is what has happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the Brian Ortega, Josh, when he beat fucking Ricardo Lamas coming
Absolutely.
not Lamas into the, and then obviously Yair now. Yair was on that same track too. He if he would have won that Edgar fight, where would we be right now?
Oh, he'd be top 5.
Like he
Yeah.
could be where Brian Ortega is right now if he would have beat Edgar.
It wasn't just that he lost; it was the manner.
Because that's how
in
Brian
which he
Ortega
lost.
got where he is.
This is true, but this is a good step for him. I don't want to see him take on any. He needs somebody else in the bottom of the top 10 rankings.
You think so?
Yeah, I do. That's just my opinion. He needs something he can build up off of that's not too much. I don't think top 5. I think they'd eat him for breakfast still. UFC likes to rush fighters along, and I get it.
Yeah.
You just make it or break it, but
Well, he's
they're also a company that needs to build stars.
27, 26?
Yeah, this guy's flashy. He's a star. They build him right. Build him right, please. So we'll see.
Yeah, but now you already
I like the Emmett fight.
You already have the history of the Z-Beat fight, which I think is why that could end up being the next one.
I like that fight. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Zabit's a monster. Another one of these Dagestanis that are just absolute beasts.
Yeah.
And so if we got Emmett versus him or Zabit versus Rodriguez, I like both of those. Korean Zombie, I'm open to anybody in the top 10 seeing him fight.
Cub Swanson.
I like the Cub Swanson, like you said. That would be pretty good. And so that kind of wraps up UFC Denver, though. Yeah. There was plenty of other fights, but honestly, a lot of them were duds and nothing that we're going to talk about here on the show today. Kudos to all the winning fighters. But we did mention this earlier, and let's circle back around to it because it's been in the MMA news a lot, which is Ben Askren, Robbie Lawlor, which is a controversial fight inside the mixed martial arts world. Now, if you're unfamiliar, I will do a quick summary. Ben Askren coming into the UFC here, former Bellator champion, former ONE champion, undefeated, Olympic wrestler, obviously
18-0.
18-0. He's very highly regarded. World beater. And there's been a lot of wondering who the UFC was going to match him up with because he won't fight the champion in 170, which is Tyrone Woodley, who he trains with.
And then, of course, all the news we were talking about before, the 25 division being dissolved.
Right, this has to do with that.
Begs the question of if Ben will end up at 65 because Ben is kind of like, not naturally a 65er, but he could definitely make it.
Yeah, he's not a big muscular guy. He's thick, but he's not muscular. And the reason this ties in with the 25 division as well is because he was brought over in somewhat of a trade between ONE Championship and UFC for Demetrius Johnson, the former flyweight king, which if you're unfamiliar with, you can hear all about that on episode 14 we did last week.
Yeah.
So, Askren versus Lawlor, former Strikeforce champ, former UFC champ.
This is a good fight, but not a good fight to sell. This is a good measure of talents, but this is not what all of us that know Ben Askren wanted to see.
Yeah, if you're not a Ben Askren follower on social media, you should check him out. He's an entertaining guy. He's got quite a mouth on him. He does a lot of fight promotion, and he's quite a character. The problem with pairing him with Robbie Lawlor that Paul's referencing...
He respects him is the problem.
Well, not only respect Lawlor, which he stated openly, is Robbie Lawlor is probably one of the single most stoic fighters in the UFC.
He's probably one of the most respected fighters in the UFC.
He doesn't talk at press conferences. He doesn't engage in pre-fight shenanigans. He doesn't engage in post-fight shenanigans. But he goes out there and fights his motherfucking ass off.
Yep.
But he's not for all that yapping. And so a lot of people are saying that's not the best way to introduce Ben to the UFC and to the larger MMA fan base because he doesn't have a dance partner in the pre-fight build-up.
Yeah.
So I guess that is an argument.
But at the same time, this is a good measure of fucking strengths for Ben because now we're going to get to see him against an elite level striker who has legitimate wrestling like defense.
Yeah, he's not a world beater. I mean, Cowboy took him down, so his wrestling defense is...
It's solid.
He's an older fighter he's been through some wars. I mean, his wars with McDonald. Yeah. Carlos Condit.
I was going to say Carlos Condit.
I mean, good Lord.
Got KO'd by Woodley.
People lose years.
He's coming off and what people are not talking about also, he's also coming off a torn ACL.
Yeah, he's coming off injury as well. But Lawler's a hell of a fighter, but he is a bit war-torn.
Yeah.
But he still has good takedown defense, and he still has good striking.
Yeah, 100%.
And he's still a top 5 fighter in the UFC. He's not like he's some gatekeeper just over the hill.
He's coming off like, well, here's the deal. He lost the title to Woodley, took a good amount of time off after that. Then he came back, beat Cowboy. Then he ended up fighting RDA. Kind of lost a wrestling battle. And that's what scares me about this fight, is what is this really going to prove when he's coming off a loss at this age? That's my only criticism of the fight.
There's a lot. Maybe for Askren, it'll answer some questions if he goes out there and handles Robbie Lawlor. But if Lawlor goes out there and wins, what is it? I don't know.
Not really. I mean, for Askren, what does this really prove? Because if you're
not a lot, because they'll just say Robbie is done. He's over the hill.
Exactly.
He lost. He lost all those years of his life in the Condit and McDonald fights.
Yep. And even in that RDA fight,
and Woodley KO'ing the hell out of him.
Ass.
Yeah. And
RDA fucking beat him down. Cowboy and him had a good fight too.
So you're right. I agree with you on that. It's a bit of an odd matchup, but it's what we got.
Yeah. Here's my thing. I'm not complaining because I like any fight that Ben Askren's going to get this fucking shit going. But at the same time, I think there were better fights that should have been on the table if they weren't on the table.
Yeah, I agree. It is what it is.
Like, who the fuck? What is he going to fight Thompson next? I'd like, if they do that shit to him too, I'd fucking. Because those are the two guys he was like, yeah, I guess that just feels like those two were on the table because he was talking shit about everybody, and then he was like, I respect that. He wouldn't really say anything about fucking Woodley, or not Woodley, but Thompson.
Stephen Thompson. He just did like that thing, like,
yeah,
your
whatever,
karate doesn't
you
work
suck,
on me.
yeah.
That's about it. There wasn't a lot of heat there.
Yeah.
He was throwing heat at everybody but Robbie Lawlor. But that's what we got. We're going to see what happens. I like Askren in the fight.
Yeah.
I think he's going to... I thought you were handing it. I'm trying to snatch that joint. I thought you was passing it.
I'm just playing.
What do you think of this weed?
It's pretty good.
I like it. Out of the two, though, I like the sour banana sherbet better. It's got a lot more flavor.
Yeah.
But this is all right. This joint started burning a lot better once we got past that super tight packing. But with Lawlor and Askren, well, we're going to see what happens. I think we're going to see Lawlor get taken down and beat up, though. Yeah. You know, people talk that Ben's boring.
Is that on pay-per-view?
I don't know if we have all that information yet.
I think they said UFC on ESPN January 29th. Might be. Is that it?
I know it's in the ESPN. It might be the main event on an ESPN card. We really don't know.
Dope.
We don't know what to expect.
Which would be dope.
So
have your boy Ben Askren, who fucking, you know, he'll never say no to a camera. You know what I'm saying? So like, get his ass on ESPN, get his name out. You know, get out there. Let's say he dominates Robbie Lawlor on the ground for 3 rounds. People are like, damn, who's the last person that tons of people watch someone dominate on the ground?
Khabib.
So people are going to start clamoring for that fight outside the UFC because now they're talking about, you see that guy on ESPN the other night who's he fights 165, him, you know, he fucking dominates people like Khabib. I wonder if he could do that to Khabib. And then you get that train rolling if you're the UFC.
That's a storyline you could build because in a way that's completely different than Conor, he, similar to Conor, has a good talking game.
Yeah,
like they're not similar at all in their styles. He's not like ripping Conor. He's been this way for years. But
no, he rips Conor all the time. He says he sucks. Which he's kind of right.
I mean, he's not ripping off Conor's style. Yeah.
He would fuck Conor up.
Oh, Conor don't want none of that.
Like, that's what sucks is like, did you hear what he said though?
He goes,
manhood? I'm doing this for Conor, dude. He can take his 55 title back when I fucking beat up Khabib. Khabib will come to 65. Conor gets his title back. I beat Khabib. Everybody's happy. The UFC gets what they want.
Everybody wins, right?
Dana's probably sitting there like, unblock.
Unless you're a Khabib fan, then you're going to talk some shit.
Who gives a fuck? Honestly.
Right. Well, so that brings us to some upcoming events. We got a series of weeks here. We've got fights.
Yeah, we got
every weekend.
6 straight weeks of fights.
They're not all the greatest fights. I mean, let's be honest here. I kind of feel like
it's a round out. It's It's like, thanks for everything, Fox, but this is what you're getting.
Yeah, you took the word. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I kind of feel like they're just shoving some cards together here at the end of the Fox
Although
deal.
there's some definite title implications in some of these fights.
Now, folks, if you don't know what we mean when we're referring to the deal here, UFC's had a 7-year deal with Fox Sports. It's coming to a close here at the end of December. And on January 1st, they're switching over to ESPN, which is a major bump up for the UFC.
Huge for the UFC because now you're a mainstream sporting network.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Everybody wakes up and watches ESPN. Or, I mean,
yeah,
generally.
So, ESPN's worldwide leader in sports, obviously. And people so the UFC's not giving Fox the world's greatest fights here at the ass end of the card, or the ass end of the deal. They are what they are.
There's some solid pay-per-views.
Not knocking the fighters, but
definitely
they are what they are.
good pay-per-views though.
Good,
this year.
solid pay-per-views, yes. But here, what do we got next week? We got Neil Magny
versus Ponzopokyo in
the eye. the great eye poker.
Dude, they should have a prop bet over under eye pokes.
Yeah, how many?
I'll go 4.
This guy, in both Paul and I's opinion, is the worst eye poker.
He's a flagrant eye poker
in the UFC. It's unbelievable. Just research the Gunnar Nelson fight for a great example.
Here's the funniest part: is like it's so bad that on Ariel's show in the past, he's had frame in frame FaceTimes with fighters that have fought Ponzinibbio also, and like them talk about how they've got poked in the eye by him.
It's unbelievable. When he fought Nelson is a prime example. You can see the slow-mo. I mean, he did 4 straight eye pokes in a series of about 4 seconds, and then KO'd the blind fighter. Yeah. He did it to Mike Perry. Mike Perry is not too much of a bitch to talk. Well, neither was Nelson. Then it was his coach that pointed it out. I mean, and any of us that watched the fight were like, "What in the fuck just happened?"
John Kavanaugh was really pissed about.
Dude, those are so flagrant.
Super.
They're so flagrant.
What can you
and he
even
keeps
do,
doing
though?
it. It's like, worse than John Jones.
It's like what can, like, if the ref is not calling it, what really can you do?
Nothing.
Like
kick him in the nuts.
Yeah, like there's.
I poke back.
I mean, like as a quarterman, like
as a
they bring that up. It's like, what can you even do? Like,
what can you even do? I mean, the fighter, they're going to say they go on. Yeah. And people say, well, they shouldn't say they should go on. Well, if he says he can't see, then the doctor's going to stop the fight, and it's a TKO loss.
Yeah.
Which for most of these fighters means half their fucking paycheck just got flushed down the toilet.
Yep.
Because most of these guys are on a contract that pays them, say, $25,000 to show up and fight, and another $25,000 to win.
Yep.
So if they say they can't fucking see, even if they can't fucking see, that's it. They're done. They're out half their potential money. So yeah, they're going to say that they're fine every time there's an eye poke. Yep. So it's a bullshit argument that some people who don't seem to understand the situation make. Well, if you can't see, you should tell the ref. Well,
no.
Okay, then you go home and tell your family where half that fucking money is. Yeah. You know, so yeah, it's where the referee needs to step in and take points. And these fighters need to really utilize that full 5 minutes they get so they can see again. You know, I know they don't want to lose the rhythm and other things, but it's more important to see. I mean, we just had the heavyweight championship of the world change hands off flagrant eye pokes.
Yep.
I mean, it's terrible. And this dude,
dude's
he shouldn't even. It's unbelievable. Every single fight.
He is something else.
It is unbelievable. So I think he's going to beat Neil Magny because he's going to eye poke the shit out of him. Magny won't be able to see, and then he'll probably get KO'd.
Think so?
That's my prediction. KO by eye poke.
All right.
So, and we'll just bounce right on. Right? You want to move on right after that, and we'll get into these fights, later on the next
right
episode.
After that, we got the rematch.
Our boy Curtis Blades versus Francis Ngannou in is it Singapore?
Yeah, in China.
Singapore. It's going to be an early morning card, but this is an interesting fight. Blades lost.
Really interesting fight.
Yeah, Blades lost a few years ago now to Ngannou.
Lost is a hard word.
Right. It was controversial.
It was a doctor's stoppage. He was still 100% in the fight.
Yeah.
He was getting beat up, don't get me wrong. He was getting tagged, but I don't think they should have stopped that fight.
I agree with you.
He was pissed when they stopped it. I mean, yeah, but then that also goes back to protecting the fighters and shit, but
I get that argument too.
I get why he stopped it, but at the same time, you kind of want to see what was happening because Blades was really catching his wind at the end of that fight. Ngannou was kind of like gassed. You know what I mean? He was like, gave him all he had. He was still coming forward.
Absolutely. Blades is a tough motherfucker, but his
Blades
game has gone up.
striking has gotten better
Oh,
since,
yeah.
so I really am curious to see.
And he's big. We both met him, talked with him, cool ass dude. And
he kind of dominated fucking Alistair, just like Ngannou did. So.
I mean, Ngannou's reputation is partly due to his size, but
and it's
Blades
definitely
is about the same.
Ngannou's reputation's taken some serious heat recently.
That it has. It's an important fight for Francis as well.
Yeah, he really needs to put on performance. Or what is that? 3 in a row.
3 in a row.
3 in a row, and then one of them was fucking unwatchable.
And where he's already had Dana White throw him under the bus.
All right, well, let's put it this way: you were dominated, then you were unwatchable.
Absolutely.
And then if you follow that up by getting dominated again, where are you at?
Bellator bound. Well, I don't know. They tend to keep heavyweights around, but Dana White, who used to be in love with Francis Ngannou,
well, here's the deal.
Before the Stipe fight, is lost all that love.
But here's the deal: it's not Dana White's fault. This has happened.
No.
It's not like.
Dude,
I get you shouldn't talk shit on your product, but at the same time, someone needs to check that dude's ego. If he's fucking, you know what I'm saying?
When we say the unwatchable, we're referencing the Derek Lewis-Francis Ngannou fight a few pay-per-views ago. And it was terrible from both fighters' fault. But at least on Derek Lewis's side, he had an excuse of a bad injury to his back that made him unable to throw punches and move much. Francis Ngannou had an injury to his mental state, is all we can guess. Because he threw how many punches?
He was like a player on fucking UFC. If he was like your controller.
Was it 19 punches in the whole fight?
I think it only landed 9.
And it was a decision.
They all were jabs.
It was basically two very large men standing around staring at each other. It was unbearable.
Derek Lewis did what he could in the first round, and kind of burnt himself out, and he was like, "Fuck."
And Derek came out and admitted to his poor shit and said why.
He's like, "Damn, that
Ngannou just kind of faded and didn't say shit, hasn't addressed it.
And it's like now he's
stinkers
well,
now.
then also he's got huge shit going on in the press. Like his coach calling him out saying he's got an ego problem, and I'm pretty sure he switched camps because of it.
That's a lot on the line for him. But look, I think you're the same as me. We're rooting for Curtis. We like that dude, and you know Curtis has a no contest on his record.
For that fight,
he had a fight overturned due to smoking marijuana.
Really?
Yes.
I was unaware of this.
Indeed, that is what his no contest is on his record.
Really?
Is for a weed violation, which we all know is not a real violation anyways. I believe it was in Texas. I could be wrong on the locale, but I believe it was in Texas.
Yeah.
And they're kind of strict on the weed in Texas. But whatever, either way, it's bullshit. But it does point to some smoking weed from our man Curtis, which is something we're fans of.
Yeah. Then after that,
moving right along.
At the Ultimate
We will be attending here in Las Vegas, very close to the cage. Incredibly good seats for the Ultimate Fighter finale.
Fuck yeah, shout out to my dad.
Absolutely. Which is headlined by Rafael dos Anjos, who we were talking about earlier in the episode, versus the streaking Kamaru Usman in a very important welterweight showdown. Usman's been calling for title shots, and if he wins this, believe me, he will be calling for one in the cage.
100%.
He absolutely, without a doubt, he'll be wanting the winner of Covington versus
technically
Woodley.
was an alternate for Till versus Woodley, but
right.
Then there was kind of, there was reports and things of a little back and forth with that. But when you look at a guy like Usman, it's like he's one of those. He's very similar to Ben. He's one of those fighters nobody wants to fucking fight.
Yeah, he's got really mean wrestling.
No one wants to fight.
And he's got some solid hands as well. And he seems
wrestlers
to have a hard
are taking
time
over the game,
fights.
dude.
They have been. There's no denying that. 7 of 10 champions have a solid wrestling base, right?
Think so.
Yeah, it's wrestling is definitely taking over the game, and that's going to be an interesting matchup that we're going to be just a few feet away from the cage watching happening at the Pearl here in Las Vegas. A lot of other important fights on there, but these events tend to be where a lot of up-and-comers are because there'll be a lot of fights from the tough card. And we've also got our boy Joseph Benavidez, who we've also had the pleasure of meeting. He's going to be fighting Alex Perez, I believe, on that card.
Should be a good one.
Yes, he lost a fight due to injury.
The co-main event.
Not on his part, so he got bumped over here to this card, which is a bonus for us.
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm gonna binge watch the whole Ultimate Fighter, like, all the way through, right before we go.
That's a good idea. I'm behind on that. I was watching it, and I just
too.
fell behind with everything else.
It's hard to keep up,
on.
man, because the UFC doesn't update it on Fight Pass either.
No.
It takes them like 2 weeks, 3 weeks before they post episodes, so you kind of gotta wing it with your.
A lot of the major news sites don't
check
cover it
FS1 like all day.
And like MMA fighting won't cover tough because they're just not fans.
Yeah.
Which is funny. I get the viewership has gone down, but overall UFC
still a good show.
has got down. I mean,
yeah.
They're pulling 600,000 to 800,000 viewers an episode, and they get shit on. But look at the last pay-per-view. The numbers are in for Cormier versus DC. It was 230,000. They're getting 3 times a pay-per-view. There's still an audience there.
Here's my thing though. It's kind of fucking corny, dude. Like, switch it up a little bit, man. Like, locking everyone up in a fucking house with, like, no contact to the outside world for, like, 9 weeks. Like, in every season, someone gets drunk and talks shit.
Well, they have cut that down quite a bit in the Fox era, especially these last ones. It's not so much the house drama like it was in the early seasons.
No, the house drama was the best one.
Now it's a bit more of the fighter backgrounds. Like, they dove deep into fighter backgrounds. Now, I admit that might switch up in the later episodes after everybody's had a fight. I haven't seen a lot of the late episodes here lately, but I love the early ones because I like knowing those histories.
Yeah.
I like hearing about the fighter's family, their fucking hopes and their dreams, because these are hungry guys. And when I see them in the UFC, I give a fuck. They're not just some random,
Sometimes.
Because that's the argument I hear from the MMA media too, like MMA fighting. They openly say they don't cover it because they don't care who gets drunk in the house. Hey. But I keep watching these episodes and not seeing that, dude.
Let me bang, bro.
Julian Lane. Let me bang, bro.
That was the fucking stupidest thing I've ever seen.
Dude, speaking of Julian Lane, he just fought in that World Bare Knuckle Fighting Federation first event over the weekend. It was not without some controversy. He won.
He banged, bro.
I think he banged, bro.
Jesus Christ, that's the dumbest fucking thing, dude. Like, how do you... That's gotta
Those
suck,
of you that watch The Ultimate Fighter know what we're talking about. Those that don't,
funny, dude.
Don't worry about it. But that was funny. It was a famous statement made by somewhat of a character, for sure. But speaking of that event,
some fucking shady motherfuckers come out of Tough, man.
Oh yeah, man.
Like on that show, there's been some weird people. Like, what was that other kid during the Frank Mir season? He got kicked out for just being fucking wasted every single night.
Oh yeah, that's right. No, I know who you're talking about.
He was actually pretty solid too.
He was decent, but he couldn't handle the booze.
Something like Junie something.
Yeah, Junie Burns, Junie Brown.
I don't know.
Something like that. I know.
Something like
exactly
that, dude. But he was about. He had hella potential, but he was just getting fucking wasted every night in the house, and just doing stupid shit.
Dude, so some of these guys, I didn't like that. Looking back on it, you get these.
I don't know. That fucking season was great, though. That was a good fucking season, dude.
I mean, the UFC likes to bitch about it. Then don't stock the house with alcohol.
Yeah,
motherfuckers. They love it, but
at the same time, it's good TV, man.
It can be. Junie Brown, I think that was his name.
I don't know.
They had some fighters who couldn't make weight. It kicked off that show. They've had a lot of fighters go on to have successful careers, though.
There's been some funny-ass dramatic ones, like that kid during the Tito and Chuck season who, like, was, like, fucking went and got a colonic... Or, no, not that one. Which season was that? Was that the BJ Penn season?
Oh, my God, I'm trying to remember. It's hard because there's 29 seasons of the show, folks, so it's not like there's 5 seasons. There's 29 seasons. They tend to blur after a while.
It was the BJ Penn season.
Was it BJ Penn? Yeah, man. That was some shit.
He's like, put me back in.
Pun intended.
Put me back in. Put me back in. Some good sound bites from that fucking show, dude.
Interesting to see what ESPN does with it now that it's going to be an
Yeah, because originally they said they weren't going to extend it. They were just going to do the Tuesday Night Contender series.
Right, but then they changed it.
Now they're like, let's do it.
So
which
that's
is cool.
Yep, we're down with that.
Probably be like an ESPN Plus kind of thing.
Yeah. So we got that here that we're going to be at. That's in just the end of November. Then we still have a series of cards coming after that. We got the Tia Tuivasa versus Junior Dos Santos card in Australia. That's an important
another
heavyweight
one that has
fight.
some pretty big implications.
We got the veteran in Dos Santos, former heavyweight champ, versus the streaking young upstart Tuivasa.
Here's my take on this. I think the best performance out of the fight between Blades and Ngannou and the fight between Tuivasa and Dos Santos gets the next title shot. The best performance out of those two.
There's a solid argument for that.
Man.
With a couple exceptions.
I mean, here's my thing. I'm talking legitimate title shots. I know that there's going to be a DC fight and all that shit, but I'm talking once let's say next year, like,
well, that's the other thing with DC. It's hard to take him seriously when you keep saying I'm retiring. So yeah, okay, you're the champ, but you're not going to be the champ in 2 years.
For a vacant title shot in July against Stipe Miocic.
Yeah, if he retires March 19th,
Tai Tuivasa would be a good fight, or Curtis Blades would be a good fight against Stipe in July for a vacant title.
Saying the Lesnar fight goes down.
Or maybe Jones.
DC wins, which is
Jones. He goes down and fights Jones and vacates the heavyweight title, something like that.
Whatever it is. We wind up with a vacated heavyweight.
I mean, unless he doesn't get those and DC is willing to fight the winner, like let's say Junior Dos Santos wins, that's a pretty big fight. DC versus Junior Dos Santos.
They can't overlook Stipe again on that.
What's Stipe done though since he's been champion? Nothing.
What, since the Cormier fight?
Yeah, he hasn't done shit.
Well, because he's clamoring for that rematch.
I get that, but at the same time, what have you done for me lately? You got knocked the fuck out. After
getting blinded in the eye with the eye pokes from DC.
And I do agree with you on that, but my thing is DC's looking for an interesting fight right now to close out his career on. Are you looking at somebody that, like Curtis Blades, who's really beat
But he's never even defended. Why does he deserve to get some marquee matchup? Just because he's Daniel Cormier?
He did just defend. He just defended against Derek Lewis.
I forgot. He defended against Derek Lewis,
and you cannot
deny a close and exhilarating fight.
Yeah, but at the same thing, but you cannot deny Derek Lewis was still the
he was still
definite number one contender in that division.
Derek Lewis is 9-1, ranked number 2. It was a deserving fight, albeit short notice, but it wasn't. Fuck, I just don't like DC. I mean, I'll just be honest. I'm trying to come up with some reason. It's because I don't like DC. I don't like seeing Stipe get screwed. I've never understood why the UFC never embraced this guy. I think he could have been a star, and the only reason I fucking heard is, well, he sounds gravelly when he talks, and he doesn't always like media.
Here's my problem with Stipe.
So?
Here's my problem with Stipe. Yes, he held that heavyweight championship record and shit, but in every single time he defended that title outside of that Ngannou fight, there were serious chances of him losing those fights.
Yeah, but that's heavyweights, man. There's always serious chances of it. That's why everybody gave Derek Lewis a chance. We both picked him. Why? Because he could have slapped Daniel Cormier.
That's my problem, though, is you can't sit there and tell me that Stipe is the best heavyweight of all time and everything like that when people were... Maybe when he was champion, people were really seriously talking that he was the best heavyweight of all time. But then he's having... The best heavyweight of all time, in my opinion, is Cain Velasquez. Cain Velasquez is, although he lost that Junior Dos Santos fight, every other fight he's had, he won in devastating fashion.
All right, hold on. Let's clarify here. Are you talking best UFC champion heavyweight or best heavyweight ever, period?
I'm talking UFC.
All right. So you're seriously telling me that Cain, who fought like the same two dudes over and over again.
Shut the fuck up. He beat everybody.
Bigfoot twice and then Junior Dos Santos 3 times.
And Brock.
He wins against Brock. Dude. Have you looked at his title defenses? He kept fighting over a period of like 5 years. He fought JDS, 3 people.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he wasn't good. I'm just saying, like,
here's my thing.
That's better than breaking the title defense record, fighting the guy over and over again on a consistently short time period, everyone that's thrown in your way. Hey, not the same two fucking guys. Bigfoot Silva?
He beat Travis Brown, too.
Not his champ.
It doesn't matter. We're talking of the body of work to be the best.
You're talking about
champ.
the best heavyweight champion of all time is Stipe Miocic. He defended it more than anybody. He's the best. I'm not saying he's not the greatest heavyweight. We're talking who's the best champion.
Knocked out by Stephen Struve, dude. Get the fuck out.
Young in his career. Dude. How many years ago?
Then he got KO'd by DC.
And your boy Kane got slept by Werdum in Mexico.
He gets slept, dude. Don't try to play like that fight wasn't close, dude. Don't even play that game. Just fucking.
That's where C-level Kane got invented.
Yeah, dude. Like Kane, that. Like,
I'm not saying he's not good. He's great, but I mean,
surgeries. Like, get the fuck out of here,
dude. They're just trying to say he's coming back again. No, you're not.
I can see it.
Like the last comeback where his back gave out again. I mean. Seriously, Kane's great. He was a great champion. He's
know
elite.
How he gave out either.
But he's not a better champion than.
He knocked Travis Brett out in the first round and broke his back. Come on, dude. Fuck.
Dude, I'll tell you why. You just go to YouTube and search Cain Velasquez kettlebell, and then you'll know why. That poor man.
Jesus.
That poor man. I mean, you choose who you train with and whose advice you take, but still, you expect people to give you good advice when you're with professionals.
Yeah.
It's a terrible thing. That made my back hurt seeing that.
Well, but here's the thing, though, dude. Is like, it's hard to say who's the best heavyweight of all time in the UFC, because then you know who also like.
It's hard to ignore Fedor.
You know who fucking nobody talks about? Who has a fucking real serious, like legitimate fucking.
Werdum?
Like, no.
Who?
Frank fucking Mir.
Oh, Frank
dude.
Mir does
Frank
have a
Mir
legit
has
resume.
A legitimate
Absolutely.
resume of being 100%. The best heavyweight in UFC history.
No, you're right.
Frank's beat the who's who across the whole heavyweight division.
And beat them when they were somebody.
And, of course.
And he came back from adversity and won the title again.
Yeah, twice. He
with a completely different body type.
Almost died.
Yeah.
Like, legitimately almost died.
No, people like to shit on Frank because he's maybe hung around the game too long.
Yeah.
But he also fights in a weight class where getting knocked out fucking happens,
and who
dude.
didn't he beat when he was champion? He fucking broke Nogueira's arm, dude. Come on.
No, man. He's got some wins in there. And he beat the Beast when the Beast was the Beast. Like Brock when Brock was fucking like people were like shitting their fucking pants over Brock Lesnar.
I mean, that was kind of lucky though. I'm not gonna lie, but still,
it is what it was. You know, it was legit.
Frank was a beast in his prime.
I think Frank could have beat Fedor if he didn't just lose his head and get in a slugfest. Like if he'd have just followed the goddamn game plan. But whatever, that's Frank.
I think Frank is another case, kind of like Kane, of what could have been. Let's say Frank never gets in that motorcycle crash, and he was one of the youngest heavyweight champions of all time. What could he have done? You know. Same thing with Kane.
Well, same with Kane. Never got injured.
Kane got, as soon as those injuries started coming, he like, I don't know how, but he just like couldn't get going without getting injured at all. You know, like it's crazy.
I mean, there's no proof, and all this is just spec and rumor because obviously we're not there. But I strongly am in the camp that believes that Kane's best years were given to DC inside that fucking gym at AKA. I mean, they'll come right out and say, "Oh, we have the wars, me and Kane, wars. It's harder than any fight I've ever been in the UFC." What the fuck are you doing, man? That's not supposed to happen. Yeah. But then again, there's the other side that says, "Well, look at the success of DC in that camp and tell me how that's not supposed to happen." So I mean, I get it. It's
that camp.
It's a matter of opinion.
It's a grind.
That camp's a fucking Stone Age grind, but they win. But their guys get hurt all the fucking time.
100%.
And they've got fighters whose careers have been derailed due to those injuries.
And that's just the game.
It's a dual-edged sword, man.
But at the end of the day, that's also just the game, dude.
No, that's right. It's the fight game, dude. It's hard as fuck.
Everybody's built different. Everybody's body reacts to things different. And maybe you got a guy like Kane whose body's kind of broke down. But then you also have a guy like DC whose body's held up, and now he's double champion. You know, that could have been Kane, honestly.
No, true. They have very similar body types.
Very
Kane's
similar body style.
Fat, but there's
very similar body style. And John Jones and him were thinking of fighting each other right before everything broke off for the both of them.
So cool, dude. I would have liked that fight.
People don't realize, but the UFC, like right when that strike force like kind of kicked up, they were in a very similar situation that they are now. Like when they got like WEC Strike Force, they were trying to do like a lot of like unification bouts. Like remember they were gonna do Aldo versus Anthony Pettis, that fell through.
Yeah,
They wanted to do. They wanted to do like. They wanted to do a lot.
There was
of
a series
fights.
of those they were looking at. Yeah.
Yeah. Then they wanted to also John Jones versus. I mean, this was later on, but they wanted to do John Jones versus Kane. Obviously, we also look back when Stipe and Where Doom fell out. John Jones was the first one to step up and say he wanted to fight Stipe.
This is true.
But then everyone knows what happened after that. It was just stupid shit.
A lot of interesting possibilities coming up there. And this fight with Tuivasa and Dos Santos opens a lot of those up. As well as
Tuivasa,
obviously Blades and
meteoric
Ngannou.
rise, man.
Dude, that kid's a beast, dude. A beast. I read his backstory and some of his street fighting shit. Like, that kid is a beast. Like, he's no fucking joke.
He's got sledgehammer hands.
Yeah, he does. He's got that, like, that natural power.
Oh, yeah.
Like, unlike a guy like...
He's like a Mark Hunt. Literally.
Yeah,
he's like
yeah.
Mark Hunt's
He's like...
brother.
Exactly, dude. He's not a guy like Brock who's a mountain of muscle.
I hate to profile him like that, but he's Mark
for
Hunt's
real.
little brother, dude.
That's absolutely. Well, then after that, we got a couple major pay-per-views.
Really big pay-per-views after that.
We got the Holloway-Ortega rematch booked finally, which we were so looking forward to back in July.
We've gone over this fight a couple times.
I mean, it's hilarious. We got photos from that big UFC fest we attended here in front of the Max Holloway versus Brian Ortega July 7th, poster behind us, and then it fell through.
It's strange, though. The kind of, like, behind-the-scenes narrative here is, like... I hate to do this, but like a lot of people have been bringing up, like, is Max gonna make it to the fight this time?
Yeah, let's give a little backstory here to people who might not have heard. Max, he fell out of his last fight due to very odd symptoms he was experiencing during fight week. In a lot of on-air interviews, they never really said what it was due to, but it seemed to be mental lapses. He seemed really out of it. People were worried about.
People gave him an array of diagnoses.
Some people were worried he was having a stroke. That. I mean, that was never confirmed. I'm saying he had a stroke, but there was talk about.
There's like some real
was that what it was?
like symptoms.
Yeah.
Like
he had some bizarre mental.
He collapsed on 2 occasions inside of a week.
Very frightening to see.
Yeah.
Like, that's for a fighter. That's far more serious than like a knee
There's
injury.
A point where they said the day before the weigh-ins. What was that? 2 days before the weigh-ins when he got pulled. This was the reason he ended up getting pulled. He had a training session. And then crashed hard, and they couldn't wake him up. Like, it was like a dangerous level. Like,
I saw him on the interviews before that. He was really bizarre on his on-air interviews. He just seemed
eyes were closed almost, like
and out of it. Like
it
seemed like he was like high as fuck. Like he went and just blazed up a huge ass blunt of that fucking Maui Wowie, and then went on air, which he obviously didn't do. So it was very concerning.
Yeah.
So
he was like slurring his words and shit.
Yeah.
It was strange, man.
So there's a bit of concern for Max's health here heading into this fight and this weight cut. And let's hope that it goes well. Max is tall. He's 5'11", dude.
A lot of people have been
145 pounds, 55. People. Yeah.
And I think that'd be great. He goes to 55, fights Conor. That'd be a big non-title fight for both of them.
I don't think Conor fights Holloway ever again.
What? I think that's the perfect fight for him.
I'm not saying I don't want to see it.
That's the perfect fight for Conor.
Working on a theory about Conor McGregor.
What's your theory?
Because you know I love Conor.
Yeah.
But
I want to hear this. I haven't even heard this off the air yet.
My theory on Conor McGregor is I'm 50-50 right now, or maybe even 60-40 in favor of him not fighting again.
Why?
I think he might be done.
He's signed a 6-fight deal.
Yeah, so what? He also is having another kid on the way. He just launched a fat whiskey. Here, I'll tell you why. Let me scroll it back for a second here. Where does Conor McGregor come from? He was going to be a fucking plumber. He comes from a slum in fucking Ireland, a shitty Ireland fucking thing. He was going to be a goddamn plumber. He had no money. And then he decided he wanted to be featherweight and lightweight champions and cage warriors, right? He had that hunger. He had that poor man hunger. We've all seen it. We've seen the documentary. You can see it on Netflix, man. Dude was broke and hungry, and he had a special kind of drive for a very, very specific goal. And then he achieved the first part of it in Cage Warriors. He won the featherweight title there, and then he won the lightweight title, and then he immediately said he's going to the UFC and going to do the exact same thing, right? And we all know how that went down. And then along the way, he threw Floyd Mayweather's name in the mix, starting before the Eddie Alvarez fight. He started putting that into his fucking dream as well. Why? Because that's a payday. And then he was so focused. That was what everybody talked about, right? He had that fucking hunger, that drive, that hunger, and then he went out and he did it. He did everything he said. All those crazy goals, they're done. That's it, right? And then what does he do? He has another child on the way. He launches a whiskey that by all indications is extremely successful. He launches a high-end clothing line that seems to be blowing up. Then he fights Khabib. Doesn't really look himself, loses, but still, in my estimations, he said if they hit 3 million pay-per-views that he would make $50 million. They hit 2.3, so you can figure he probably made around 30 mil. That's a shit ton of money, bro. Yeah. That's another hunk of cash coming into his coffers. All right? I don't think he wants to take a small-time fight. Like, I just don't see him being like, I want to be the champion. You think he's got that drive now? I'm not saying... I think we saw evidence of him not having that drive in the Khabib fight. And not taken away from Khabib, but everybody knows that Conor looked a bit off.
He looked like shit.
He looked like shit. Khabib looked great, and Conor looked like shit. And the style influences that, too. And I'm not saying that's why Conor lost, and I'm not attributing it to ring rust. I don't think he has that same fire, because I don't think it's humanly possible. Because coming from the boxing world, I've seen it time and time again with heavyweight champions. Fucking happened to Mike Tyson. Tyson had all that dream and drive and got $300 million and was like, I can just knock motherfuckers out. What did Conor think in the Khabib fight? I'm just going to go knock him out. Now, I know he always says that, but every indication of that fight would, and his trainers on JRE would indicate that's really what they thought would happen. They said they literally were giving a round to Khabib if he took him down. So my hypothesis is Conor comes back for a mega fight, maybe against Diaz for one more fat-ass payday, then he ain't taking the brain damage, dude. He's going to go be a fucking baller that he is, a businessman, and raise his family, and maybe promote some fights, and we're not going to see it no more. And I'm 60-40 that happens. Maybe one more fight, maybe none. There it is. That's my theory.
Unless what I was talking about earlier happens. And
Which
Khabib moves to 65 and fights Ben Askren, and then drops the 55 title, and Conor picks it back up and keeps riding.
I would like that as a fan. That's what I would prefer. I prefer Conor fights every 3 months.
Because then he would probably fight Tony Ferguson for a vacant title.
I don't see it, man. I think if he had the fire, they would have taken Khabib differently. I think if he had the fire...
Does losing Khabib reignite the fire, though?
I don't know, because he lost the fight, but got paid. That's his highest grossing MMA fight ever by far.
Well, he was talking about
because that's his post
100% guaranteed this time too.
Yeah, and that's his post Mayweather.
Yeah,
and it dwarfs the fucking Diaz fight in pay-per-view sales.
100%.
And he's definitely getting more of everything. He's getting higher numbers. He probably works shit we know nothing about to get shit like Floyd does off of shirts and fucking sales. He's not stupid.
Yeah.
People can talk all the fucking shit they want to about Conor. When it comes to making cash, that man knows what's up. Yeah. So I guarantee you he's making money in ways we don't know about.
Yeah. But at the same time, he can make a whole lot more money on top of that. Because this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning of making that kind of money.
You think he makes the Rocky comeback? I mean, that's ultimately it's the Rocky story, dude.
Listen to this.
Champ,
so,
money,
like you just
it.
said, he makes what, about 30 mil. Let's say that after that he's like, you know my worth. I'm only fighting for 30 mil or more, and then he does that 6 more times.
You think he can get that 6 more times? Or there's those fights there,
dude?
I mean, he has to win. He has to go on a series of fights that he wins.
I can name 6 people on top of my head that he could fucking fight right now, and that he probably would beat 90% of them.
I mean, let's be honest. He doesn't need to be rematching fucking Khabib in that 6.
No, not at all.
Because he's going to lose.
No, yeah.
And he doesn't need to fight fucking Ben Askren. Because he's
going
to lose.
No, fuck no.
Right.
I'm talking straight strikers. I think he should fight Tony Ferguson.
Tony Ferguson, I like him.
Aldo again.
Aldo, I like him. Diaz.
Max
Holloway.
Diaz. And then...
I would favor
Anthony
Conor
Pettis.
in all those fights.
Anthony Pettis as well.
I don't think they'd be walks in the park, but I would favor Conor.
Those are all fights he could get up for, and all fights that he could definitely like show off his best skills.
You think he wants, with another kid on the way,
You think he wants to take that kind of punishment to his brain? Because this is also a Conor that saw a man die in the octagon right in front of his face, who's openly stated his CTE concerns.
Well, if you're also Conor and you are fighting at your optimal level, who really is hitting that hard?
He hasn't taken a lot of blows.
He hasn't taken much.
He took some hefty ones from Khabib, but we don't really know how hard
Khabib was like
is.
really the first time we've ever seen him seriously hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, Diaz also, but like Diaz
Diaz hurt him, but
Diaz was kind of more of a fatigue thing.
Yeah, it was more overwhelming.
This was more of like an actual like knockdown. Like
he took a power shot that he completely was unprepared for, hands down, no respect given, and paid the price.
I'm telling you, dude, I think Khabib's done. I think he's going to retire.
Now, see, that's another maneuver I think could easily happen. I think Khabib could retire, too.
Because he's just taken this, like, whole suspension thing, like, so wrong. Like, he could easily just show up for this hearing and he could be done with it. But now he's, like, going out and he's like, I'm not showing up for the hearing because I'm not guilty. It's like, dude, come on, dude. Just get it over with. Everyone wants to see you fight.
I don't understand what he's thinking. He seems... I mean, all the Khabib lovers are going to shit on me, but does he not get it? Does he just not understand it's not the UFC doing this to him, it's the commission? Do you understand that the UFC can't punish Conor for the fucking Brooklyn bus incident because he's not a fucking employee?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, does he not get it? Like, if he wants to bitch, he should bitch to the New York Police Department for not bringing harsher charges against Conor, for not punishing him. But he can't. Like, and I just don't get it. Like, it's the commission, dude. You did it at a fight, you motherfucker. It's different.
Yeah.
It's not because they favor Conor over you. It's the jurisdictions you committed your fucking various infractions at.
Yeah. I don't think he understands.
You don't keep shitting on... Maybe he'll get away with it, dude. Maybe he'll get a 9-month suspension. But history would tell us you don't keep shitting on the Nevada State Athletic Commission in public. That's a fucking terrible plan.
Terrible plan.
Like, I want to see Khabib fight. I hope they give him 6 months and he fucking fights. But Christ, I think you're right. He might be done. He might say fuck you and peace out.
Dude. Speaking of Khabib, you seen Ali just...
I'm just going to say, his manager's an idiot. His manager's lost his fucking mind.
You see what he did this week?
Which time?
He went through Henry Cejudo's Instagram and... not his Instagram or Twitter or something like that, and he tweeted at Conor and it was like, hey, worry about yourself and your own wrestling, it sucks. Or something like that.
I saw that one. I saw him talking about $50 million for Khabib. They seem to think because he beat Conor, he now has Conor's followers and pay-per-view numbers, which is nothing against Khabib as a fighter, but you get the fuck out of here.
Khabib's a draw, but he's not a big draw. What'd he do at Brooklyn? What were his numbers then?
I think they were pretty low.
Exactly, because he fights Ferguson next, I guess. Dude,
watch him get an 18-month suspension and fucking retire or some shit. You see, he took some position in the Dagestani government.
We talked about this also. Josh Thompson was talking about before any of this happened, before the fight even happened, was talking about Khabib had plans to retire after this fight.
Dude, he could go out a martyr, you know. So
it's definitely a business move. The walk away.
Well, we'll see. It's December 10th is the hearing, and hopefully it doesn't get booted again.
Yeah, fuck.
I mean, they're both suspended, Conor and fucking Khabib right now. So we'll see. But we got back to this card here. We got Holloway Ortega, which obviously there's some ramifications there. And on that same card, we've got the women's 125-pound long-awaited championship fight with Bullet Valentina versus the former strawweight champion, Joanna Jędrzejczyk.
Oh. What?
Anyways. I'm excited about that fight, dude. This fight is... Joanna lost to Bullet Valentina 3 times in kickboxing.
Yep.
Joanna was a 5-time defending strawweight champion. Lost twice to Rose Namajunas, once for the title, which Rose initially won, and then once in a rematch. Finally moving up after she beat Tisha Torres, I believe. Yes. I think she's better suited at 125, but I don't know if she can beat Valentina.
Valentina's looking fucking good, man.
She's a beast. She's one of...
She
might be my favorite female fighter right now. She's so fucking badass.
She scared the shit out of Nico Montaño.
Fuck yeah, she did. And old Sarge in charge there, Eubanks. Fucking. She don't want
Imagine
none.
if she would have came in miss weight, dude. Oh my fucking god. Imagine that, dude. How fucking mad would the whole
That would have been it. Out of the UFC right there, girl.
Think so?
Yeah, I don't think they fuck around with that. Because she fucked up on Tough, too.
She
don't want none of Bullet Valentina. She don't want none of that. She does not. She's too raw. But let's not talk about her. There's no point in that. Let's talk about JJ and Valentina. Who do you like in that fight? Just even though we're a few weeks out, and we'll talk about it as it gets closer. Valentina. I got Valentina too, although that might change as we examine that further.
I need to watch
in more detail.
I need to watch the fucking countdown.
Yeah, I need to go back and rewatch.
I really got to see how serious Joanna's taking this weight change to see if she's really adjusting her body as well. Because if she's gonna fight this next weight, you got to think also Valentina's coming down from 35. So you got to think also, like, they already, like, one's coming up, one's going down.
Right.
So they're already naturally going to have a sort of a different body style. So what is Joanna doing to take steps to make that 25?
Well, she's always made weight, but it's been difficult for Joanna. I mean, she looks pretty scary on weight cuts.
Here's my thing. There's something to be said for moving up to a weight class healthily. You know what I'm saying? Like
absolutely.
You need to do it. You can't just, if you're gonna move up a weight class, you can't just I'm gonna eat a little bit more this week or something. You know, it's like you gotta think of what you're doing to your body at this level of fighting, because she can't go in with that skinny body style at 25 where Valentina's fucking ripped because of it.
She's pretty solid,
she's
ripped,
cutting
man.
down. You know, Joanna, I don't know what she walks around at. But she's not the biggest. She's not going to be the biggest girl at 25.
Dude, I hope she wins. I want her as champ. I mean, not only is she like a badass fighter, that girl is absolutely beautiful, and she's like a gun fanatic. Like, I'm so in love.
Jared, dude.
No, but that'll be a great fight. Who do you like in the Holloway Ortega on that card?
I got Brian.
You like Ortega? I'm going Holloway. I think Holloway's going to come through, barring any health issues, mind you, in the lead up to that.
I got Brian just because Brian's the next breed, dude. I don't know a fucking fighter at 45 or 55 that Brian really can't beat.
I mean, honestly, dude, I would prefer as a fan that Ortega wins and Holloway goes up to 55, and we see things like that Conor matchup you talked about. But just on a, purely who I think is going to win, I think Holloway's got this one. We got a couple more fights here before we call it a show here in the series that's coming up. We've got Kevin Lee versus Raging Al
Raging Al Reality.
All your Long Island real estate needs.
I'm high as fuck. I mean, reality.
Raging Al Realty.
You see that? Do you follow the fake Raging Al on Twitter?
The fake one? No,
yeah,
I follow the real one.
Funny, dude.
Is it?
It's like all like real estate jokes about people he's gonna fight and shit. It's
nice.
Fucking hilarious. But I like that fight. It's a good rematch.
I like that fight too.
Lee is definitely a lot better than he was the first time, so Raging Al better fucking step his shit up.
Yeah, you better take Lee real serious, man.
Super
Another
serious.
fighter I met Lee a couple weeks ago, man. He dug the S.W.A.T MMA logos too.
Oh, yeah.
But he's cool, man. He's such a beast, dude. His wrestling is so on point.
I'm telling you, I've said this before and I'll say it again. Kevin Lee is a dangerous motherfucker at 55.
Mm-hmm.
Could be better. Watch out.
And he's another one of those fighters
I'd
that
like
could fuck around at 65.
I'd like to see him fight Tony when he's not compromised. I mean,
dude, he had a staph infection and gave Tony Ferguson all he could handle that first round.
Run for his fucking money.
It was no joke, and that was a serious staph infection. Like, it was blatantly obvious. Is how we knew, because that thing on his chest was like. I remember he walked out. It was coming out of the back on the walkout, and Joe Rogan was like, "Oh my, that's a serious staph infection on his chest."
Yeah. Like, Jesus Christ.
And he's still, because if you don't know, folks, that seriously compromises like your system and your endurance, and like
everything.
Your body is trying to
just wants
fight
to lay down
a terrible infection.
Yeah,
that is causing a horrible red outbreak.
And he said he wasn't on antibiotics because it would make him feel like more shit.
Yeah. So he was just fighting that. So Kevin Lee's the fucking man.
Yeah, fuck.
And he's super cool, man. That dude is really cool to meet in person, man. He sits. He's down to sit and chat.
Now you got Al coming off the loss to Khabib.
In a fight that you could arguably say he did better than Conor McGregor in.
Sure.
That's what Al's out there saying.
He also got beat 5 rounds.
I don't blame him for saying it.
He also got beat 5 rounds to none.
I think it's an odd thing to say, but I like Lee in this fight. I'm a fan of Raging Al, but I think Lee's going to overpower him.
Yeah, me too.
I think he's going to take him down and overpower him. That's the way I see.
And then rounding out the year.
And the Fox. Well, no, this is a pay-per-view, so it doesn't round out the Fox deal, but the end of the year rounds out the Fox deal. But rounding out the pay-per-view here in Las Vegas, an event, if we're not going to attend this event, we will definitely be on scene at the weigh-ins. It'll be the biggest fight in, well, since Conor Khabib. We've got John Jones versus Alexander Gustafsson for the light heavyweight championship of the world.
And do you know what the co-main event in that fight is?
Tell everybody what it is.
Cyborg versus fucking Amanda Nunes. Oh,
yes.
shit.
The women's featherweight champion, and the only featherweight in the UFC, but still the badass woman's fighter, period, not just because she's a woman, but Cyborg versus the 135-pound legend killer, Amanda Nunes. I've heard it pronounced both ways.
Who says that?
Dude, I've heard it on broadcast that way.
Really?
Sonnen says that all the time.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
But Amanda Nunes, who, I mean, let's face it, she beat Rousey. She beat Miesha Tate. She's beat everybody they've put in front of her.
She beat Holly, too.
She beat Holly. She's an absolute beast. Moving up to 145 to fight Cyborg. I'm excited, dude. That's a fucking awesome fight. That's probably the best fight they could make for Cyborg in the UFC, hands down.
100%. Well, let's get back to John Jones.
And then John Jones, Gustafsson 2 for the Daniel Cormier will be stripped by that time, barring some crazy circumstances.
Rematch of one of the greatest fights in lightweight history.
Yes, 5 years ago they fought to going into. Well, John was down on the cards going into the 4th round.
Then John won the 2.
Whereupon he lands a spinning elbow mid-fight that changes the course of the fight. John really shows his championship medal, wins on a decision that a lot of the big fans of Gus say that he actually lost the fight, won the decision. I don't buy that. I've watched it 5 or 6 times.
Tough one.
I think John.
I almost think it was a draw, but the draw goes to the champion.
Draw goes to the champion.
Yeah.
I'm of the oft disputed by purists mentality that you gotta take it.
Yeah.
Like, but I think what you just said illustrates that it's a fact. If it's a draw, the champion keeps his belt.
Yeah.
So the challenger has to take it. If it's super close and you're like, I don't know who won, the champion won. Yeah. It's a draw. The champion wins. But all the judges scored it. I believe it was 47-48 for John Jones. 3 rounds to 2. I believe it was unanimous. 3 rounds to 2. I could be mistaken. This is a fight from 5 years ago, but I'm not mistaken on that spinning elbow changing the course of the fight. John really turning it up in a fight that he lost. He was losing those first rounds.
Yeah, that
in
was
a fight that he was openly admits
to
partying, doing a lot of cocaine the week of, not taking it seriously.
Yeah.
So it should be very interesting to see what happens now. Gustafsson has not fought in, at least a year.
Gustafsson hasn't fought as long as John Jones hasn't fought.
Yeah. So they both have the potential for rust. But we've got a John Jones now who I guarantee you is taking it very seriously. And can we all just pause a moment here on the S.W.A.T MMA podcast and everybody listening and say a silent prayer to the MMA gods that John Jones makes it to the fight, through the fight, and then the 12-hour window after the fight and clears all drug tests. Please, for the love of God. This has been an ordeal since UFC 200. Let's do this, boy. John Jones. Oh.
Watch him. Right. What if he loses?
What if he pops for something again?
And loses.
And, let's not. We can't go there. We, as MMA fans, we could not handle such a situation.
I'm not going to lie, man. Gustafsson has a real chance to win this fight.
Gustafsson's elite, but John could be on a whole nother level. John's been talking a lot about his boxing, which I like because before the OSP fight, which people point to him being rusty in, what was John talking a lot about? He was talking a lot about his powerlifting, dude.
Yeah, it's true.
And he's gotten off that tip. And he's looked lean in those face-offs last week. He looked lean.
Surprised because, like, about 3 or 4 days before he got announced that he wasn't going to get suspended. Well, I mean, that his suspension wasn't that long.
Suspension wasn't that long, yeah.
He posted a video of him boxing, and he looked actually pretty heavy.
I saw that. He did look. He looked large.
Heavy as fuck.
His boxing was.
Now he's looking a lot smaller. So
yeah, he's not. I don't think he's on that heavyweight tip at all.
Nah, I don't think he gives a shit about heavyweight.
No. Well, man, I think that about wraps up the show today.
Yep.
Lots of fucking exciting things closing out the year. Exciting things on the horizon with the ESPN deal. We got lots of herb in front of us. We're going to get back to smoking. You know, I met this guy at the Urban Expo yesterday. I'm going to give a little shout out to Fatty's Premium Papers. If you see him out in Reno, Nevada, check him out. Nice little magnetic tip. Got some filters built in there. Looks kind of cool. Unpaid endorsement. Nice guy. Buy him if you see him. We're going to roll one of these fatties with the sour banana sherbet that we got. We're probably going to hit this dab rig. No matter where you're listening to us on, WBUZ 95, which you can find on radio.net. Orange Radio app. Where else were we, Paul? We're on iTunes, YouTube, Google Play.
Google Play, all that bullshit.
We got a great Instagram page. You should check it out. Yep, SWATMMA.com has all that stuff. Going to be updated here real soon. Thanks a lot, everybody, for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.
Peace.
Like, comment, subscribe, all that bullshit.